the thumbnails of the pictures used to create the final dress. Since I photographed the weed up close, it will already appear large on Photoshop when I copy and paste it onto the main image. Altogether, I only photographed around 5 different nugs, but photographed each one 3 times from 3 different angles. After taking several pictures of the weed up close, you're going to want to use the quick selection tool, which is a great tool to use because it kind of just snaps to the outlines of the selection you're trying to create. And you're going to want to hit Control Copy, Control Paste on the main image to bring over your selection. To match up the tones of your selections, just bring up the curves layer and you can darken the selection so that it blends in with the rest of the layers. And I'm just going to take each layer and I'm going to duplicate it, flip them horizontally so that it appears different than the original layer we copied and pasted from. And I'm just going to move the layer around and try to find the best place for it. I'm going to use a warp tool also, and I'm just going to use that to distort the edges of the selection and just make the selection of the weed look completely different than the original one we copied and pasted from. And that just saves me a lot of work from copying and pasting different pictures of different weed. Here I can just manipulate the same picture over and over but in different ways. And here's just another little example of how I use the warp tool. And you can only use the warp tool after you transform your selection by hitting Command T, so don't forget to do that first. And like I said, this just saves me a lot of time from copying and pasting different pictures. You can see how I'm completely covering the space dress that's behind the selections just by stretching out the edges of the weed selection so that it covers all the open gaps and all the open spaces. And I'm just going to keep copying and pasting the layers of the weed over and over just to cover the dress. And it really doesn't even take that long to do, like altogether to do the dress composite. Probably took less than 20 minutes, give or take, so definitely didn't take very long at all. And just to review all the changes I just made, I'm gonna click the 20 layers of the different weed pictures on and off so you can see the dress just kind of magically come together. I know it doesn't look like super realistic yet, but later on I'm gonna add a lot more tones, colors, and curve layers to make everything look more like a realistic dress. And I'm using the warp tool right now to kind of add like a tube top kind of effect to the weed dress, and I'm just stretching out the corners of the top layer selection. I'm also just quickly going to use the clone tool and patch in a few areas where I want more of the weed dress material to appear. And I'm clicking that layer on and off so you can just see the difference. And now I'm just cleaning up the image by painting in all the white gaps that appear around my body and my face. And I'm just using that with black paint. And to make my job even easier, I'm going to use the lasso selection tool and create an outline for where I want the black paint to appear. And it's a little bit jagged, the lines of the dress, but we're going to use motion blur in a second to kind of blend in the weed dress with the background. And now to add in the smoke. So I took a picture of me smoking for the camera, just blowing out the smoke. And I took a picture with my remote, so that's how I take pictures of myself. And I'm just gonna place that layer over my lips, transform it, make it larger, place it where I need it to be, and then I'm just going to create my layer mask and erase away where my lips appeared because we don't want 2 lips in the picture. That looks kind of weird. And I'm just going to transform it, then go to my warp tool and just stretch out the selection so that it covers more of the picture. And the white smoke, of course, is going to blend in really nicely with the black background since originally it was shot against a background that was pretty dark to begin with. And to blend it even better, I'm going to create my layer mask and use my paintbrush tool to erase with black on top, white on bottom, and just erase away at the edges of the selection that we don't want to appear. And now it's looking a lot more natural and the smoke is fitting in a lot better to the entire image. And I'm also bringing up curves and darkening the image by pulling the curve layer down so that the smoke blends in with the black background even more. And to make the dress look a little bit more realistic, like an actual dress, I'm just selecting the lines of the dress on the left side, making a new selection by hitting copy and paste, and I'm using the warp tool to just bend the selection and just make it a little bit curvier and more like a dress fit for a woman's body. And I'm just going to keep messing around with the dots on the box of the warp tool, and you can just see what that looked like before and after. And just to add more smoke to the picture, I'm going to use the lasso selection tool to draw a circle, then hit copy and paste, then turn the selection upside down and just match it where I want to place the smoke. And then I'm going to create my layer mask and erase away at the edges so that it blends in with all the smoke. And you can just see I'm clicking that layer on and off so you can see what it looked like before and after. And I'm also going to bring in a hair flip from a picture from a different shoot where I was flipping my hair for the camera. I'm going to use curves to match the tone so that the hair blends together. And hair can be really tricky because it can be really hard to get rid of the background, which is blue in this case. So I'm going to use my replace color tool on Photoshop, and I'm just going to darken the blue colors and change the hue and reduce the saturation. So that kind of helps to get rid of the blue background. And just to get rid of the background even more, I'm going to use my paintbrush tool and erase away from the layer and totally get rid of the background. And like I said, I want to make this dress look like a realistic dress fit for a woman's body. So now I'm just using the liquefy tool, which is an amazing tool I usually use on my fabric pictures. And you can just access that tool by going to filter and hitting liquefy, and you can just see the before and after effects of the liquefy tool. The next thing I'm going to do is go to my curves layer and bring the line down just to darken the entire picture, so it really brings out the details of the background and the weed dress a little bit more. I'm changing the background from a black color to a more red, magenta, purple color by using levels. And now for one of my favorite parts of the Photoshop process, I'm going to select different areas of my body and the dress that I'm going to add motion blur to. I'm going to redefine the edge. I'm going to smooth it out and feather it so that it blends in really nicely. I'm going to create a new background layer so I can erase away if I want to, if I make any changes that I want to erase away from. And here, this is my motion blur settings, and I'm just going to mess around with the dot on the line till I find something I'm satisfied with, and you can see just by clicking the layers on and off how different it looks. I have my layer mask since we had a background layer, so I'm just now erasing away at some changes that I don't want to appear in the final picture, and you can just see again I'm clicking the layers on and off. And now I'm at my selective color adjustment layer, so now this is the coloring portion of the process. I'm adding a vignette right now to make the picture a little bit darker on top, but how I made the picture overall a lot more red was by going to my selective color adjustment layers and reducing the cyan of the red colors, which just saturates the red colors a lot more. Now I'm going to my noise reduction, which I do for every photograph that I put out there. I love using noise reduction because it really gets rid of the little tiny grainy dots that you see when you zoom in super close on pictures and just makes everything more painterly-like. So I use like 6 layers of noise reduction, and now I'm just adding in a curve layer so that there's more of a spotlight on my body and my face and the dress. And I just did that by drawing it in again with the lasso selection tool and just bringing up a curves layer. And I like that adjustment so much, I just duplicated that layer, and now I'm just changing the opacity of the layer. And now I have all the layers grouped together so you can see the before and after of the curve layer lighting effect. And this picture was taken in front of a window, so that makes for amazing lighting that is really kind of flat, but is great that you can go in and just kind of manipulate on Photoshop. And now just to give the picture a more painterly effect, I'm using a texture that I have on screen mode, and I just brought up a curve layer on the texture, which I'm darkening. I'm also on the red channel of the texture, and I'm just adding in a little bit more redness and more red highlights by bringing the top right side of the curve layer to the left. And sometimes when I really like the effect of a texture layer, I'll take that layer and I'll duplicate it and then flip the texture horizontally like I did in this case. And you can see how I'm just stretching the texture out, making it larger. And now I'm moving it around and trying to find the best place to put it. And I'm just clicking that duplicated texture layer on and off. And here's yet another texture I'm bringing in. So this is around 4 textures now that I've used overall. And I always make my textures black and white before bringing them onto the main image, and then I bring up my curve layer and I'm going to darken it and then mess around with the RGB channels of the curve layer and just make the overall picture a lot more red and bring out the red highlights of the picture. And here's just a quick example of how I'm adjusting the red curve layer of that texture. You can see I just made the picture a lot more red. And now I'm just darkening the right side of the picture a little bit. It's kind of like a right-sided vignette, and I'm also making it a little bit more blue just to kind of make the picture a little bit more surreal and kind of add more element and depth and detail, if you will. And I'm just going to do the same thing to the opposite side of the picture. I'm using my lasso selection tool to create a selection. Then I'm going to darken that selection with a curve layer, soften the tone by pulling the left side of the curve line up. I also use curves to brighten up my dress. You can see I'm just clicking that curve layer on and off so you can see the difference before and after. And I also did the same thing on the overall picture. In the middle of the picture, I kind of just drew a big circle and just used a curve layer to brighten up that selection. So you can see this is what the final image looks like. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making this picture. And in case you were wondering, I do have a medical prescription for marijuana, so none of this was illegal. It's perfectly legal for me to have marijuana in my home and take pictures of it if I want to. I am based in Southern California. If you want to create a picture just like this, please feel free to imitate this exact picture if it helps you learn more about photography and Photoshop. As you can see, the textures really make the biggest difference. I would say the textures and the combination of the colors, and I really just love the blue and purple colors. I just think they're so pretty to look at. But if you enjoyed this tutorial, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next time.